Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink is by Herbin, by the name of Perle Noire, which means the black pearl, and since I'm terrible at pronouncing things, I think I'm just going to call it the black pearl from now on. And so, when it comes in a bottle or a tin, you'll see this sort of image on the front of the bottle, like you do here for VittaR, except this would be black, of course. And they're 30 milliliter bottles, and they are obnoxious to try and use to fill a fountain pen. Same with the tin. When you get it in a tin, like Tel du Faux, you get the same sort of little picture, and the sides would be black instead of this brownish color. Now, all the tests were done in this JinHao 250. I always forget if it's supposed to be X250 or just 250. With a medium nib, just sort of their standard nib. And these have number 5 nibs instead of the number 6 that you see with the 750 or the 450. So, get that out of the way. Thought I'd compare it to a few other, at least slightly similar inks. Here's Private Reserve's Invincible Black. Assuming my camera ever focuses. Come on. Boy. Noodler's Borealis. Noodler's Zhivago. Diamine Onyx Black. Noodler's Quick Dry Bernanke Black. I couldn't understand what that was. Rohe und Klinger Leipziger Schwarz. Schwarz. My German is terrible. I only lived in Germany for like 2 months. I apologize. But, yeah, here's Perle Noire. Black Pearl down at the bottom. I'd say if it's closest to anything, it's probably closest to Onyx. Except that sort of almost seems to have a red base to it. Which is kind of weird. Borealis Black is also quite dark. The others are kind of too different. So, here's the chromatography. Now, here's how you're supposed to do chromatography. You can definitely see where the ink was initially, and you can see the bits that it's pushed up. And you see some gray, and there's almost like some purple at the top. Here's where I let it dry, which is not how you're supposed to do it. But you can definitely see the spot is darker. And I did it again kind of for fun. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but there's almost like this gold-green quality there. So I don't know what that's about, but interesting, right? Next up is, top down in density, Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter. My phone keeps going off. I like my blacks to not have any shading, and this one definitely doesn't, which I enjoy. However, this is a very thick ink, and I think I know why. It's very good for fountain pens, which if you've ever seen a fountain pen, you know, the nib just has this open bottom. And you need a sort of a thicker ink with a greater surface tension so that it'll stay on the nib while you use it to write. This would probably be great for dip pens. My pen was kind of struggling with it. If you stopped writing with it for a while, it had trouble starting. So, yeah, something to keep in mind. It's interesting because even though the flow was kind of hard to get going and it almost seemed dry, once you got it going, it was actually fairly wet, as you might be able to see here. It took 18 seconds to dry. This is a very black. It's very dense. No bleed, no feather, no spread, no sheen. And as you can see from the water test, that actually resisted the water pretty well. You could recover that. It would make a mess out of the page, but you could recover that. Next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter, where it took 17 seconds to dry. And here I saw a bit of this red-black sheen, and so I tried to lay it on really thick so that it would be obvious enough for me to pick up on camera, and I nearly scrubbed through the paper. So I say there's no bleed, feather, spread. Not really, because I was just being an idiot. There is a bit of it throughout, though. I just know it's too small to get on camera, so I hope you'll take my word for it, because a little bit of it is there. If you put it in a sopping wet pen, you might be able to see some of it. Now again, water test, actually pretty good. It did dye the page, but as you can see, it didn't feather, it didn't explode. and still very readable. Next up is Tomoe River Paper, where hopefully here you'll see some of this red-black sheen. Just look at the scrubby. See that? And it's all throughout, but the scrubby is always the easiest place to find it. But yeah, 25 seconds to dry. Because this ink is so thick, it's so dense, that on this paper it definitely struggled to dry a little. But yeah, there is a good bit of show through, but this is a black ink on obscenely thin paper. And again, I sort of tried to lay the ink on really hard so that I could get some of that sheen on camera. So when you're being reasonable, you're not going to have that problem. I was just being an idiot to try and make my life easier when I was filming this, and I apologize. But yeah, Tomoe River loves to let ink slide away when you add more water, but that is pretty clear. That's pretty dark. You could definitely read that. That would not be a chore to read. It will dye the page a little, though. Now, here's where I was surprised. This is the world's worst copier paper, but it actually did pretty well. 2.5 seconds to dry. There's really not a lot of feathering. Like, if you look at the dot between J and Herbin, there's a bit of feathering, and that's about as extreme as the feathering gets. It doesn't get much lighter here. It's still a very dark black. 2.5 seconds to dry, and this is a medium nib, and again, once you get that flow going, generally it's a bit wet, but this paper is so cheap and so absorbent that the flow did have a bit of trouble keeping up. Now for the world's worst copier paper and for black ink, I'm actually pretty impressed, because this is a medium nib. I mean, we've seen, what, fines and extra fines bleed through this, so really not too bad if you ask me. Now, there is a bit of spread. If you look at the line thickness, it does get a little bit broader. But yeah, again, pretty decent water test. It did seriously dye the page. It did feather a bit, but you could recover that if you had to. Next is Mead Notebook Paper, where for once, the Copier Paper has outperformed the Mead. I don't know why. Again, 2.5 seconds to dry. You do get a little bit of feathering here again, like you see in the eye. Bottom of the B. It's not extreme, it's not intrusive, it's almost like that extreme woolliness just carried over the line to a tiny bit of feathering. But yeah, I said there's very near bleed in a good many places throughout, and that's true. You have this extreme echo, but if you see, nothing actually made it to, like, fully to the other side. However, I feel this would make many people uncomfortable writing on both sides, so maybe keep an eye out for that. This is a medium though, so, you know, maybe a fine or extra fine would do better. Yeah, no shading, which is nice. As this paper tends to do when you add water, the writing tends to feather and explode a lot, which we see a bit here, but it's still fairly dark and fairly there. That could be recovered. And modern, accurate Moleskine notebook paper, which actually I was kind of surprised by, because you don't get quite as much spread, and I mean, for a medium nib, that's really not much bleed for modern Moleskine paper, but what you do get, I'm going to try and hold this really still without shaking too much and giving you motion sickness, and I'm failing. You see those crazy feathers? I mean, they're gigantic, and they're everywhere. This is like my oh, look at the 5. That is my definition of obscene feathering. I mean, when they're long and like obvious and they're everywhere, that's distracting. Now, I'm not that surprised that it took 8 seconds to dry. This is a medium nib, and this is very thick ink. Did I expect it to be 8 seconds? No. That is a bit longer than I expected, but having seen that, I wasn't shocked. But yeah, not bad. There's really no shading in that regard. It's perfectly fine. If you thought the feathering was bad in the regular writing, look at the water test, because that's kind of insane. But again, if you absolutely had to, you probably could recover that. It wouldn't be the easiest job in the world, but it could be done. So, there you go. There's Herbin's Perle Noire. Yes, I just massacred that. The Black Pearl. It's a perfectly good black ink. I think it would do wonderfully well in dip pens. It's a little reticent in fountain pens, so maybe something with a wet flow that could handle that sort of thickness. Resists water pretty well. I just already have a favorite black ink. So yeah, for your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to share your opinion, if you'd like to vote on the next several ink reviews that I do, please go over to my video apology announcement invitation and let me know what you'd like me to review next. Thanks for watching. Bye.